For our next video in the Lessons in Logic playlist, and specifically the unit on categorical logic, we're looking at a few more immediate inferences that you can make in categorical logic. Now, I think I will resist all urges to go back and review a lot. I strongly recommend that if there's any need, go back and review by watching maybe the first 5 minutes of the last video, the video on the traditional square of opposition. So here we're looking at a few other immediate inferences we can make in categorical logic. That means conclusions drawn from only one premise, and we are still assuming the Aristotelian approach to existential import. We are assuming that universal propositions are talking about things that exist. Now, I think we can do this much more quickly than we did the TSO video. Let's talk about a few valid immediate inferences and a few things you can do to categorical propositions that are sometimes valid and sometimes not. Let's first define complement and term complement. Let me give you a formal statement of this. A term is the term complement to another term if it denotes everything in the universe except what is denoted by the other term. So it's going to be much easier if we understand this by examples. What is the term complement to the term large dogs? It's things that are not large dogs. What is the term complement to large dogs? It's things that are not large dogs. You cannot say non-large dogs. Because non-large dogs does not denote cats. Cats should be denoted by either a term or its term complement. For anything, any category of things, any term, everything in the universe is either denoted by a term or its term complement. Everything in the universe should be denoted by either a term or its term complement. If your two terms do not together refer to me and to my teacup and to my left shoe and to your nose and to your best childhood friend and to a jar of peanuts at the grocery store, then you are not dealing with a term and its complement. A term complement denotes everything except what is denoted by the other term. So non-large dogs only denotes dogs that are not large. Now you could say non-large dogs if you spell it differently with the right sort of punctuation. You put parentheses around you put parentheses around large dogs and then put non-hyphen in front of it, then you can make a term complement that way. Any term, you can make a term complement that way. You can put non-hyphen in front of it and then put parentheses around it, and then your non guarantees grammatically, linguistically, that the term you've constructed in this by using this process will denote everything not denoted by the original term. But the punctuation is awkward. I don't recommend it. Here's the safe way. The safe way of writing out a term complement is just to add to the original term things that are not. So if your term is empty peanut jars, just say things that are not empty peanut jars, and there's your term complement. Books that are not leaning to the right is a term. Things that are not books that are not leaning to the right is the term complement to it. So a useful trick is to think of something and then ask whether either term or its term complement denote it. I recommend not going overboard with this and thinking about too many things. I recommend you pick 2 or 3 things, pick one person and one thing like your desk and the current president of the USA. At the time of the recording of this video, it's Joe Biden, or some random celebrity. I don't know, it doesn't matter. Just pick two people. I suggest a person in your desk or your left shoe and some other person. I don't know. Think of something and then ask whether either a term or a term complement denote it. That's a useful way to check on whether you've actually constructed your term complement correctly. So think of a term. Seriously, think of a term. I'll think of a term. Good. I got a very simple term. I'm thinking of the term cats, and I'll assume you're thinking of a term or that it doesn't matter. So think of the complement to that term. I'm thinking of non-cats because the grammar works, but now I'm going to try phrasing it differently. Now I'm thinking of the term cats and the term complement, things that are not cats. And now these notes go back to when Obama was president. Think of the term and the term complement. For me, I'm thinking of cats and things that are not cats. Now, see if that's really the term complement. Does things that are not cats denote everything that's not a cat and not denote any cats? Does it denote Joe Biden? Yes, cats does not denote Joe Biden. Things that are not cats does denote Joe Biden. So is my desk also denoted by things that are not cats? You are denoted by things that are not cats. So it looks like we're okay. Maybe I should clarify one thing though. A term is term complement of the term if it denotes everything in the universe except what is denoted by the term, and denotes nothing denoted by the original term. You see my mistake? When I phrased it earlier, you could have just said everything, and that would have denoted everything in the universe that's not denoted by the term. Oh, wait a minute. Maybe I did phrase it correctly in the first place. Let's see. A term is the term complement to another term if it denotes everything in the universe. Okay, that was fine. I had it phrased succinctly and correctly in the first place. Good, good, good. Everything is not a term complement to anything except perhaps the term nothing. So a term is the term complement to another term if it denotes everything in the universe except what is denoted by the other term. So all and only things not denoted by the other term. And everything in the universe is denoted by a term or its term complement. All right, now why are we talking about this? Because we need to talk about term complements. Oh, everything in the universe is denoted by either a term or its term complement, but never both. Now, why are we talking about term complements? Because they're relevant to a few valid immediate inferences. Now, we're not going to do one box per student because I'm not doing this in class. These notes are borrowed from my class prep notes. Here are three things you can do to a categorical proposition. You can convert it, you can obvert it, you can contrapose it. Now, some of these inferences are going to be valid and some are not. We probably will not illustrate with Venn diagrams. Let's see, shall I bold and italicize the valid ones? I think I'll bold and italicize the valid ones and leave the other ones untouched. But let's first talk about what we're doing. A conversion switches the S and P terms, switches the subject and predicate terms of a proposition. So all S or P becomes all P or S, no S or P becomes no P or S, some S or P becomes some P or S, some S or not P becomes some P or not S. Or to illustrate a little more concretely, you can convert the term all guinea pigs are mammals by switching around guinea pigs and mammals. So all guinea pigs are mammals when converted becomes all mammals are guinea pigs. No guinea pigs are hamsters can be converted by saying no hamsters are guinea pigs. Some guinea pigs are fuzzy friends is converted by saying some fuzzy friends are guinea pigs. Some guinea pigs are not elephants is converted by saying some elephants are not guinea pigs. And you've noticed, as I was saying this, that some of these conversions make a lot more sense than others. So you can convert an E or an I form proposition validly, but not an A or an O. An A proposition converted is not valid. And well, what I mean by that is that you can't make a valid argument by taking a categorical proposition and then concluding its conversion from it. In other words, there are things you can do to sentences to make new sentences, and some of those new sentences are valid conclusions from the first sentences, and some are not. Here's a valid argument. No guinea pigs are hamsters, therefore no hamsters are guinea pigs. Some guinea pigs are fuzzy friends, therefore some fuzzy friends are guinea pigs. That's a valid argument. Here's an invalid argument. All Democrats are liberals, therefore all liberals are Democrats. Here's another invalid argument. Some politicians are not filthy liars, therefore some filthy liars are not politicians. Now, actually, some filthy liars are not politicians, but it's not a valid argument. And if you need any help seeing that, then let's do a counterexample. I keep referencing things discussed in earlier videos. That's probably as it should be. Let's do a counterexample to the invalid conversion of an O. Some mammals are not hamsters. Therefore, some hamsters are not mammals. That is clearly an invalid argument. The premise is true. The conclusion is false. All right. So conversion is a thing you can do, and conversions are a way of getting a valid conclusion from an E or an I, but not from an A or an O. Now, obversions are going to be all valid, and you can probably see why, although if you can't see why, no problem, as long as you remember the rules. For an obversion, you change the quality and you replace P with its term complement. So here is where our term complements begin to be useful. In other words, all S or P becomes no S or non-P. No S or P becomes all S or non-P. Some S or P becomes some S or not non-P. Oh, some S or not P becomes some S are non-P. Or to illustrate more concretely, all guinea pigs are rodents becomes no guinea pigs are non-rodents. No politicians are moral exemplars becomes all politicians are things that are not moral exemplars. Some guinea pigs are fuzzy friends becomes some guinea pigs are not non-fuzzy friends. Some politicians are not scoundrels becomes some politicians are things that are not scoundrels, or some politicians are non-scoundrels. In other words, obversion is basically just adding a double negative. You put a negative in the, you put in one negative by changing the quality, making it affirmative if it's negative or negative if it's affirmative, and then you add another negative by making the predicate term into its term complement. So obversions are always valid. Now, contraposition, now that's the hard one. With contraposition, you switch around S and P, which means you convert it, and then you replace both terms with their term complements. Now, all S or P therefore becomes all non-P or non-S, which is valid. And another valid one is O. Some S are not P becomes some non-P or not non-S. Now, E and I will not be valid contrapositions. E is no non-P or non-S. E's contraposition is no non-P or non-S, and an I proposition an I proposition when contraposed goes from some S or P to some non-P or non-S. Ooh, let's not give concrete examples. Let's do it. Let's push through. No sharks are pirates becomes no non-pirates or non-sharks, which is not a valid inference. Some guinea pigs are fuzzy friends becomes some things that are not fuzzy friends are things that are not guinea pigs. Not a valid inference. But now here's a valid one. All guinea pigs are fuzzy friends, therefore all non-fuzzy friends are not non-fuzzy friends. That could imply friends that are not fuzzy. All guinea pigs are fuzzy friends becomes all things that are not fuzzy friends are things that are not guinea pigs. There we go. All guinea pigs are fuzzy friends. Therefore, all things that are not fuzzy friends are not guinea pigs. That is a valid inference. Now, some politicians are not filthy liars becomes some things that are not filthy liars are not non-politicians. And that's a valid inference. Some politicians are not filthy liars, therefore some things that are not filthy liars are not non-politicians. That's a valid inference. Now you might be thinking, when on earth am I ever going to do a valid contraposition? Well, honestly, maybe you never will. But it's helpful to keep this in mind. And you might occasionally find a valid contraposition. You'll note that these are closely related. With the right sort of playing around with statements, you can maybe make this seem more normal. So contrapose that last O. Some S are not P. Some politicians are not filthy liars. Therefore, some non-politicians are not things that are not filthy liars. Now try obverting that. Some non-politicians are not things that are not filthy liars becomes some non-politicians are filthy liars. Hang on, let me see if I got that right. Let me do that again. Some politicians are not filthy liars, therefore some non-politicians. I didn't contrapose it right. Some politicians are not filthy liars, therefore some things that are not filthy liars are not non-politicians. Therefore, obverting our contraposition, some things that are not filthy liars are politicians. There we go. So once you obvert your contraposition, if you have a valid contraposition of an O, you can obvert it to make it less clunky. Some politicians are not filthy liars, therefore some things that are not filthy liars are not non-politicians, therefore obverting that, some things that are not politicians are some things that are not filthy liars are politicians. There we go. And it turns out they're all saying the same thing. Some politicians are not filthy liars. Some things that are not filthy liars are not non-politicians. Some things that are not filthy liars are politicians. They're all saying the same thing. So you can see how the statements are interconnected and how there are different things you can do with statements, but it's not always appropriate to do them and assume that you preserved truth. You had a true O proposition and you converted it, that was a mistake. Or you had a true E proposition, you contraposed it, that was a mistake. But it helps to keep track of which things you can do validly. And of course, some of these are very normal inferences. The obversions are perfectly normal, and you'll see conversions validly done from time to time. So some are valid, some are not, and these are the valid ones: the conversion of E and I, the contraposition of A and O, and the obversion of anything. Now, since we're still using the Aristotelian perspective to existential import, I need to mention these two other insights. We'll probably not illustrate with Venn diagrams here, but we will do conversion by limitation and contraposition by limitation. So you can convert an A proposition by limitation, and you can contrapose an E proposition by limitation. And that is valid. So a conversion by limitation means an inference following the pattern all S are P, and therefore some P are S. For example, all guinea pigs are fuzzy friends, therefore some fuzzy friends are guinea pigs, and you can contrapose by limitation an E proposition. You can't contrapose an E proposition, but you can contrapose it by limitation. Wow, why is the computer changing the formatting here? That is so weird and annoying. I copy it in Times New Roman and it tries to paste it in some uncivilized other font. All right, so the contraposition by limitation inference is an inference following the pattern no S or P, therefore some non-P are non-S. For example, no politicians are moral exemplars. Therefore, some things that are not moral exemplars are no politicians are moral exemplars, therefore, hang on, let me make sure I got this right. Change the quantity. Contraposition by limitation is a contraposition of an E proposition where we also change the quantity. No S or P, therefore, no non-P. Ah, yes, there we go. I botched something. There we go. I thought it didn't quite make sense. Okay, the contraposition by limitation is an inference following the pattern no S or P, therefore, some non-P are not non-S. For example, no politicians are moral exemplars, therefore some things that are not moral exemplars are not non-politicians. That's a valid inference. It's so wordy though. Let's do a simpler example. No dogs are cats, therefore some non-cats are not non-dogs. And that's a valid inference. No dogs are cats, therefore some non-cats are not non-dogs, or if you want to obvert that contraposition, no dogs are cats, therefore some non-cats are not non-dogs, and therefore some non-cats are dogs. And that's a valid inference. Now, it's a valid inference because as long as we're using the Aristotelian perspective, and if you don't know what I'm talking about, go back 2 videos and review, or maybe watch the first 5 minutes of the former video on the traditional square of opposition. As long as we're using the Aristotelian approach to existential import, and we're assuming that the things we're talking about exist when we're using universal propositions, we can use the traditional square of opposition, which means we can go from an A form proposition to its corresponding I form. And while you cannot validly convert an A form proposition, you can infer from it its corresponding I form proposition, and then you can convert that. So that's what conversion by limitation is. It's concluding an I from an A and then converting the I. You can't convert the I, but you can limit it, i.e. change its quantity, i.e. go from A to I on the traditional square of opposition, and then convert that. And you can't contrapose an E, but you can infer from an E its corresponding O proposition, and then you can contrapose that. That's what conversion and contraposition by limitation are. Those are more valid inferences. Now, again, you might not use these all that often. What we're doing is looking at methods of checking arguments to see whether they're valid in categorical logic. And for this and for the last one, what we're for the former video, the traditional square opposition video, what we're doing is we're learning a few argument patterns that are valid and a few that are not. And the method of checking arguments for validity, if I haven't explicitly stated it, should be pretty clear and simple. Look at an argument, and if it's an immediate inference in categorical logic, see if it's one of these valid patterns. If it is, the argument's valid, and you're done. Say that it's valid, or demonstrate that it's one of these patterns, and then say, this is one of the valid patterns, and you're done. Or if it's one of these invalid patterns, converting an A, for example, all hang on, I'll give an example in a minute. If it's converting an A pattern, or if it's one of those immediate inferences on the traditional, one of those immediate inferences that's not on the traditional square of opposition, like inferring from an A being false, that its corresponding I proposition is false, then you just say it's invalid. Demonstrate that it's that particular pattern. All S or P is false, therefore it's false that some S or P. Show that it's that pattern, and then say it's invalid because it's an invalid pattern, and you're done. That's the method of checking arguments for validity. Now, one time in Pakistan, while teaching logic in Pakistan, a student, an Islamic background student, gave me this interesting example that is probably a fallacy that has fooled some people, probably lots of people, maybe not any majority of non-Muslims, but it's probably fooled a number of people. And the illustration of a fallacy, sorry, the example of the fallacy was this, that my Muslim background student gave me in Pakistan. All terrorists are Muslims, therefore all Muslims are terrorists. You see, that is not a good inference. And if you need me to show that it's a bad inference, just do a counterexample. Any argument with an obviously true premise, obviously false conclusion following the same pattern. All S are P, therefore all P are S. All guinea pigs are rodents, therefore all rodents are guinea pigs. There you go. It's as simple as that. All terrorists are Muslims, therefore all Muslims are terrorists is an invalid inference because it's converting an A and you're not supposed to do that. But when my student said that, I responded by saying, yes, you're right. And also, did you notice where does that inference come from? Where does that premise come from? All terrorists are Muslims. That might also be for the result of an invalid inference from some terrorists are Muslims to all terrorists are Muslims. Is there any terrorist on the planet who's not a Muslim? Yeah, I'm pretty sure those people do exist. So some terrorists are Muslims to all terrorists are Muslims is an invalid inference on the traditional square of opposition from an I proposition being true to an A proposition being true. And then if you go from there to therefore all Muslims are terrorists, you made another fallacy. All right. Actually, you can prove an A if you can say some S are P, no S are non-P, therefore all S are P. But then you have to prove that there's no S that's not a P, and you have to do some extra work there. If you do the extra work, it's not actually a fallacy. All right. I guess we're done. Thanks for watching.